Hello everyone, and as always, welcome back to yet another Tekken video on the channel, with us rounding out the remaining members of the Mishima line. Today, courtesy of a character poll I put up a few days ago. Thank you for participating in those, by the way. Today, we will be talking about the original patriarchal figure of the Mishimas, father of Heihachi and tutor to that of Kazuya Mishima, Jinpachi Mishima. Whilst a relatively minor character in terms of appearance, Jinpachi's existence really does lay down the foundation for that of the series, having shaped the Mishima Zaibatsu and to really be the one to forge the power behind their fists. Yet, even with that said and noted, Jinpachi is a horribly tragic character, one that was destined to fall to ruin by the very hand he helped shape. So needless to say, this is going to be quite an insightful video for not just Jinpachi, but also the history and creation of the Mishima Zaibatsu, as I will be touching on his rise to power and how it slipped through his fingers. But before we do begin, as always, if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it does go a very long way. And if you wish to stay up to date with the content I produce, please do feel free to subscribe and tick that bell. Anywho, let's just jump right into things. Now, Jinpachi is an old, and I mean very old character within the series, largely outdating most rosters, and only ever being rivaled by supernatural characters and Wang, as Jinpachi was born in 1899. Having derived from the very ancient and prestigious Mishima bloodline, a warrior line that flourished in the Heian period. Since then, the Mishimas were held up in pretty high regard, yet never quite entered that echelon of royalty or infamy. That of course though, would very quickly change in the following decades. For the most part, Jinpachi is a very shadowy figure in the mythos. We don't know or even hear of his parents, as Jinpachi himself is actually the oldest person we've encountered in the Mishima line. Thus, information on how he was raised is largely left a mystery. But the distinct features that had Jinpachi stand out from his kin was his code of ethics and strong sense of honor, having earned the respects of many like Wang, who couldn't help but admire his code. Such integrity made him very likable, and so going forward, maintained a very close personal relationship with him. In the coming years, Jinpachi would find great generational success, as there was the rise of 2 world wars. Capitalizing on the demand for weapons of mass destruction, the Mishima Zaibatsu would begin to form, beginning to manufacture and feed into that engine. So the Mishima line thrived as the years passed by, as the Zaibatsu became a massive empire. Yet, as the war slowly began to fizzle out, Jinpachi's vision also began to change. Somewhat displeased with how he earned his success, as it was built on the blood of hundreds of thousands, he would have the company stray away from its roots, abandoning the dealing of arms, to then instead turn it towards martial arts. And so, Mishima-style karate would be born, albeit a very early version of what we would become accustomed to. It's completely unknown if Jinpachi had a wife, or if he was ever married, but we definitely do know that he had relations with someone, as it led to the birth of Heihachi Mishima. He would even build his own dojo in Honmaru, teaching his son their style of combat and karate, wishing to pass down his teachings, codes, and ethics. Now, despite the good-hearted nature of Jinpachi, the lessons he taught simply did not resonate with Heihachi. So growing up, there was a lot of tension sown between the two, as while Jinpachi sought out peace and prosperity, Heihachi wished for war, power, and domination. By taking on another student at the dojo, that being Kazumi Hachijo, these very dangerous and terrifying visions of grandeur would be quelled, as his son found love and some happiness in Kazumi, later leading to the two being married, and then siring their own child, his grandson, Kazuya Mishima. In these few years, Jinpachi develops a very close relationship with the young Kazuya, as it was his affinity for martial arts that had them bond. His talent was uncanny, and it allowed him to teach much of his own style and ideas to the boy, which at this point in time was something he desperately needed, as Heihachi himself showed very little interest in his son. So Jinpachi would fill in that father-like role for him. But little did he know that his son's absence wasn't just from his lack of interest, but it was to overthrow his father. Carefully staging a coup right beneath his nose, Heihachi is able to gain control of the Zaibatsu, forcing his father out. And naturally, being a Mishima, Jinpachi wasn't one to back down, especially to his son no less. Sadly, his retaliation was expected, and so was very quickly neutralized. As punishment, and his first true steps towards villainy, Heihachi would take his father to the very dojo he had built, and imprison him right beneath his dreams, leaving him there to slowly starve, wither, and die. Jinpachi suffers a horrible and very bleak death in the series, and really it's his end that serves as a catalyst that would lead to a war against the Devil Gene. That, and the rise of Heihachi's empire, returning the Zaibatsu back to its horrible ways. Yet, this wouldn't be the true end of Jinpachi, as throughout the series, he's actually acknowledged quite a bit until his return, being mostly referenced through Wang, actually entrusting him with the fate of his line, as he had secretly hoped that someone could take back the Zaibatsu and re-envision it into something else. This is actually a very old plot thread that does fall onto the shoulders of Lee during Tekken 2. Now this does all lead up to his canon return in Tekken 5, as whilst dead for many decades, Honmaru, the dojo, would be incinerated to the ground, as it is attacked and destroyed by G Corporation. It's from its ashes where Jinpachi would somehow rise, breaking free of his shackles to take back his company. But how is this possible? Well, originally, Jinpachi had somehow returned, having obtained the Devil Gene in death, taking on a very new and very monstrous form. With his son believed to be dead, he was able to retake control of the Zaibatsu, having a new desire, a new wish, and that was to die. Whilst on the surface, many would be happy with a second chance at life, the way in which he had returned was not something worth living for. So by reclaiming his company, he would announce the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament, in the hopes that someone could snuff out his devil form. And just before you go nuts and crazy, yes, I'm purposely referring to it as Devil Form, because originally, it was actually intended that Jinpachi had the Devil Gene, as it is referenced to as such throughout the game. The idea of this would only be retconned later down the line, having it so that instead of the Devil Gene deriving from Jinpachi, it is revealed that his very soul and being had been assimilated by a monstrous, vengeful spirit, using him as a host to carry out death and destruction. In terms of story and narrative focus, very little is known of what Jinpachi got up to once he had acquired the Zaibatsu, as he doesn't reunite with Wang, despite writing him a letter and pleading for him to enter, and he doesn't meet any family members from his time. The only one that he would interact with would be at the end of the story, where he perishes to his great-grandson, Jin Kazama, marking the true canonical end of Jinpachi. And whilst I don't normally explore the other non-canon endings, I feel like there's actually quite a few worth mentioning, because there's a sort of beauty in how sad they are, as it just paints an extra layer of tragedy to this man's character. If we take a look at his own arcade ladder ending, if no one is able to defeat him, Jinpachi's heart is shattered, shedding a single tear as the last few remaining fragments of his humanity crumbles, fully enveloped and consumed by the demonic deity. In Wang's ending, there's a very bittersweet reunion to which Jinpachi wishes they could share one more drink, then crumbling to dust. And there's even Kazuya's one, and this one is kind of brutal, because on death's doorstep, he would finally be reunited with his grandson. And for a very brief moment, the two share a memory of his childhood, with them sparring together, happy and united. And then Kazuya remembers who he has become, striking down his grandfather and taking his life. I was not kidding when I said Jinpachi might very well be one of the most, if not the most, tragic character in the franchise. It's so sad for what became of such an honorable man. Even so, this wouldn't be his last and final appearance, as he does become playable in Tekken Tag 2. Sadly though, due to the nature of the tag games existing in their own separate continuity, he does not canonically come back. I will say though, it is very cathartic, watching him effectively nuke Heihachi for all of the atrocities he has performed. So with that said, this has been it for the history of Jinpachi Mishima. And man, I don't remember this being so sad. Jesus Christ, do I feel horrible for how grisly of a fate Jinpachi has suffered. Whilst his appearance is minor in the grand calculus, it can't be denied that the foundation he helped pave way really led to where we are now in the series, as many of his kin have become the face of the franchise, and would go on to carry said torch. My only wish for Jinpachi is that I hope going forward, somehow and some way, we do get to spend more time with him, or at least come to get a better understanding of how he grew up and what became of him before the war. So now, I relay the question to all of you. What are your thoughts on Jinpachi? Would you like to see him return? What was your favourite moments with him? Please do comments down below. But for now everyone, as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. I'll catch you in the next one.